Live from Richmond International Raceway in Henrico County, Virginia, ESPN presents the SunTrust Indy Challenge, the 8th race of the 2002 Indy Racing League schedule. Hi everyone, I'm Bob Jenkins, and with this event we reach the halfway point of the 2002 series, and it's also the second night race of the year. 250 laps about to be run on what is the shortest track on which the Indy Racing League competes, just 3/4 of a mile. And if you compare the smallest track to the largest, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, 2.5 miles, you could fit Richmond into a small corner of the infield. 22 brave drivers are lined up ready to go, and ready to introduce them to you are Jack Arute and Gary Gerald.
And Bob, for the third time this season, second consecutive race, the front row has been swept by Marlboro Team Penske. On the front row, the pole sitter, Gilles de Ferran. He went from a pole 2 weeks ago to win his first victory. Flanking him on the outside, Helio Castroneves, two-time winner of the Indy 500 and current IRL point leader.
Jack, right behind that dynamic Penske duo that's won 2 in championship points is a two-time winner this season and the defending series champion, Sam Hornish, in car number 4. He starts third. And right alongside him, the rookie leader in point standings this year, Laurent Redon, number 34. He finished third at Fontana. He's hoping that he can get himself an equally fine drive tonight at Richmond.
The man who leads the field down from the inside of row number 3 led 224 of 250 laps here last year, but he has yet to win thus far this season. Buddy Lazier, and flanking him on the outside, the man that won the last short track race, the one at Nazareth before Indy, Scott Sharp.
For Chip Ganassi Target Racing, Jeff Ward got himself a great thrill and gave all of us a thrill in the process as he won that nail-biter at Texas, his first ever IRL victory. He starts inside row 4. Alongside, it's Alex Barron for Blair Racing, 7th in points, a top 5 finisher at Indianapolis. This is his best qualifying effort thus far this season.
Richie Hearn parlayed his best qualifying effort of the year to start in the 9th spot tonight. Flanking him on the outside, 5 consecutive finishes of 6th or better for last year's Rookie of the Year, Felipe Giafoni.
Starting inside of the next row, here's Billy Boat in the familiar number 98. He starts 11th. He's very excited because he and his family are on their way to Washington after this race, a private tour of the White House prior to the Independence Day holiday, and our next race next weekend in Kansas City. On the outside of row number 6, here's Mark Dismore. His second race now for the Menard Racing team. In his debut 2 weeks ago at Pikes Peak, he finished 11th.
Row 7 sees the man who finished second at Texas Motor Speedway, Al Unser Jr., flanked on the man that will make his first ever start at Richmond after crashing in practice in last year's race, the 1999 IRL champion, Greg Ray, driving for A.J. Foyt.
Isn't it great to see Sarah Fisher back behind the wheel of a race car? She'll be here for the rest of the season as a teammate to Robbie Buell. This is the Dreyer Reinbold Racing team, and she will be starting inside row number 8. Robbie McGee survived a minor incident, a contact against the wall yesterday. Car has been repaired. He's ready to go, starting in the 16th position.
When you take a look at row 9, you could say it's all Red Bull all the time. The boss, Eddie Cheever Jr., on the inside in row 19, starts 17th, and the rookie, who led 220 laps in the last 5 IRL races, Thomas Schechter from South Africa.
The engines come to life here. Row 10, Ayrton Daré, the other driver for A.J. Foyt, trying to regain the form that produced a third-place drive at Texas. And right across from him, Robbie Buell, car number 24, struggling this weekend to find a setup. He starts in the 20th spot, Jack.
And Paul Bates, the last row, finds a veteran of open wheel and stock cars, making his 13th IRL start. Going to post position 21 is John Herb, and 22nd and last on the field, George Mack, the rookie driver who was back after a practice crash yesterday.
Hey, Gary and Jack, that was terrific. Nice job of running there. You know, you've got to love Eddie Cheever. He said racing on this track is like flying a jet fighter in a gymnasium. It's short, it's tough, and it's very physical.
Paul, it is very physical. You think about it, 17-second lap around here, only 3 of those seconds the drivers are going straight. And when they're doing that, they're shifting. They're downshifting, upshifting, putting their foot on the brakes. They're also contending with traffic. The driver who will win here tonight will be the driver who's physically fit and will not make a mental mistake.
My book, that's a menu for great competition, Bob.
And guys, 4 drivers have already found out how tough this track is. First was Robbie McGee, who got into turn 4 a little bit too hard and hit the wall. George Mack hit the wall coming out of turn number 2. Couldn't control the car as it slid toward the inside wall of the backstretch. The car finally stopped when it hit the water barrels at the end of the backstretch. Scott Sharp, late in yesterday's practice session, spun coming out of turn 4, but did not make contact with the wall. In fact, continued to the pit area. And finally, Sam Hornish Jr. also in turn 4 spun, hit the wall with the left side of the car. Repairs were made to the Pennzoil Panther, and Gary Gerald's Sam starts in the 3rd slot.
Boy, what a busy night it was for George Mack and his crew. They worked until 2 o'clock this morning, Bob, trying to piece together literally a race car. All 4 corners on the rookie's car were damaged in that crash yesterday. They lost the bell housing, the motor, so they really had to start at ground zero. Didn't have the luxury of a second car to work with. They've pieced one together. George Mack says, I've got my fingers crossed. I'm going to try to keep my nose clean. He hopes his rookie indoctrination here tonight on this 3/4 mile oval at Richmond will be a good one. Jack?
Gary, at first glance, that crash by Sam Hornish Jr. didn't look as if it was going to be too bad. And then the Pennzoil Panther team brought the car back to the garage, and whoa, what they found. They had to replace the entire side of the car, side pop, side wing, and the rear wing plate. But what they managed to do was get the repairs soon enough, Paul Page, that they came back and still qualified in the 3rd spot.
Yeah, a lot of extra work being done here as the teams prepared for qualifying and the race. Going to some little missteps. You take a look at Scott Sharp as he prepares to go in the SunTrust Indy Challenge. 250 laps around this 3/4 mile oval.
And Paul, you talk about 3/4 mile oval. Now think about it. There's no power steering, no power brakes in these cars. With the high heat, high humidity that we have, there's no air conditioning. These guys are going to be physically working for 2 hours, really working inside that cockpit with a heart rate of about 170, 180 beats a minute. They'll probably lose about 5 or 6 pounds tonight.
And let me tell you, it has been very warm here. The Silver Crown cars from USAC were on the track about an hour ago. As we look at the air temperature, still at 89 degrees, though the sun is starting to set, but a very light wind speed right now.
And Paul, you talk about that USAC race that was going on before. Can make the track very slippery. We're going to try and catch up with Scott Sharp here. Scott Sharp, Scott Goodyear in the booth. How does it feel out there tonight?
Hey Scott, we're excited. This is an awesome race here in Richmond. Action-packed, traffic every lap. One of the most physical tracks that we run on. We're pumped, 250 laps. Close time to get going.
It is. We wish you all the best of luck, and we hope you're there at the end.
The Indy Racing League decided to extend by 2 laps the pace laps leading up to the start of the race to give them plenty of opportunity to get the tires scrubbed in to know exactly what they faced on that track. Honorary starter, the chairman of SunTrust. They, of course, the sponsors of this event, the SunTrust Indy Challenge. Field on the very, very short backstretch now. About 2.5 seconds of being able to relax when you're at speed. And already then you're diving into turn 3. Nice formation for that field.
A lot of drivers, Paul, right now are thinking, what's the track like after that USAC race as they come down for the green?
Green comes out. We're racing in Richmond. DeFer and Catherine Evans go side by side. Hornish and Laurette Redon close in.
And these guys will be settling down to a pace now. Very important to get some rhythm right now. The most important thing is not to make a mistake on what's a very green and greasy track. We talked about those USAC cars. 100-lap sprint race here, putting down a lot of different rubber. These guys know it's going to take 20 or 30 laps to put down the rubber from these cars, from those Firestone tires, to make sure that the rubber's down, that they can actually get their own and better grip back.
With Gilles de Ferran in the lead, he's now led 7 of the 8 races this year and 9 of the 10 IRL events he's competed in his career. Front 4 begin to pull away, but Catherine Evans is not going to lighten up on de Ferran.
Both Penske cars, Paul, very good team. The captain runs a very tight ship, they call it over there. They've been fast every session. Felipe Giuffoni was actually one of the fastest in one of the sessions, but since then, Gilles de Ferran has been the guy that's been on the head. Marlboro
Team Penske runs 1 and 2. Then Hornish, then Redon, and now Alex Barron in the Rayovac car is beginning to close in. Been struggling up and down. Changed engine manufacturer since the race at Pikes Peak. and hoping that with now Speedway doing their engines, they'll be in a little better shape. Looks right here at the start where they running in 5th, like we're in good shape. The view from Dismore, and look at the back of the car. Little show of smoke.
And Paul,
he's going to bring it in.
Absolutely the right thing, getting off the racetrack, getting off the racing line, making sure he doesn't put any of that oil down on the surface for the other cars to slip on.
So a great disappointment very early on for the Menards car. Mark Dismore, you can see the crew's attitude is very casual.
And Paul, the problem is he made contact with Greg Ray, so they've had to make a change on these tires. They're having a problem with the left rear with the center lug. They finally get it off.
Whoa! Jack, that's Helio Castroneves that lost it out of 2nd place and got the wall on the backstretch big time.
A lot of bumps coming out of turn 2. Paul may have caught him out there. We don't know quite yet.
Okay, Leo.
Let's ask Helio if he is okay. And they take the wheel off, and they're going to help him out of that car. Here it is, Scott.
Maybe just a little bit high coming off the turn, Paul, and then he starts to tighten the wheel up because he knows he's going towards the outside wall, and then it just brings the back end of the car around. Now if he goes towards the inside, see he's a little bit high, he's going to start to turn it tight now. He knows he's a bit too high, wants to miss the wall out here, so he tightens up the steering, and sure enough, it's just enough to bring the back end of the car around, and he knows the inside wall's coming.
You know, in a lot of ways, that's not dissimilar from the accident George Mack had, except he brushed that outside wall before coming across to the inside.
Well, so early in putting the damage on the car, that car certainly is one that's probably not going to be repaired.
Well, Helio Castroneves, they're taking their time with this, and of course, we'll keep an eye on it as well. So Castroneves, after starting on the front row with his teammate and fully expected a great battle there, suddenly he's against the wall. Sam Hornish Jr.'s view.
You can see the back end of the car coming around. Sam does the right thing, gets off the gas, knows the car's going to go around in front of him, and now here we are. See Gilles de Ferran on the lower end here, and then Castroneves up high. And see the back end start to come around, and then all of a sudden he's a passenger. He knows he's going to hit the inside wall, gets on the brakes, tries to slow the car down before impact.
Scott, Sam Hornish Jr. just radioed into his crew that he thought that this man, Helio Castroneves, was putting something out on the racetrack before the crash. So they could have had a little bit of help for Helio in that spin. Could have gotten some liquid down on those rear tires to have it step out like that.
And Jack, this is the very first time this year that there's been a mistake by Castroneves. It has cost him a lap. He is the only driver who's completed every lap this year, and it had that great run of top 5 finishes.
Yeah, it'll end his streak of 8 consecutive finishes of 5th or better. So unusual to see that team and that car out. Sarah Fisher comes to the pits.
Reset fuel.
This was that contact we were talking about a little bit earlier with Greg Ray and Mark Dismore, and that was more than a little contact.
That was absolutely some good rubbing, and you saw just a little bit of pushing going up from the inside car with Greg Ray and getting into Mark Dismore, and you think those guys would give themselves a little bit more room this early in the race.
Brian Barnhart headed up the drivers' meeting, told them, you're going to need patience tonight. Apparently, Helio Castroneves didn't entirely get that message. We'll be back.
ESPN's presentation of the SunTrust Indy Challenge, brought to you by SunTrust, responding to your financial needs for over 100 years. Delphi, driving tomorrow's technology. New Lipton Brisk, tastes so good it sells itself without the puppets. And Chevrolet, wherever there's a winner's circle, we'll be there.
They're inches away at 214 miles an hour. Oh, Castroneves wins the Indianapolis 500. Look at that. Well, back at Richmond International Raceway, they'll be going green almost right away. They got Helio Castroneves' car cleaned up, and the preliminary report is that he is okay. Hopefully we'll be talking with him in just a few moments, but it will be Gilles de Ferran, Hornish, and Raydon, 1, 2, 3, leading back to the green flag.
And points are so important. They're going to bring back, as we go to green, Castroneves is back. They're going to stick with the carts to try and get him back in the race.
Well, Castroneves would suffer badly if he could not get some points in this race. Look at Alex Barron down on the inside of Laurent Raydon. He goes wheel to wheel with him in the corner.
And Paul, think about this. Early in the race, tire pressures were not quite up to pressure to get them grip on the track right now. Although these guys are still dealing with full fuel tanks, you'd think they're out there doing a sprint race.
Raydon comes back on Barron. Barron has to slot in behind him. Thomas Scheckter waving his fist at Jeff Ward just ahead of him. Scheckter in the 52 car. Look at this from Felipe Giafoni's Hollywood car. Look how he has to work that wheel.
And Paul, we talked about this on the opening of the show. These guys get no rest. Here's a section there going down the backstretch. 860 feet of backstretch is the only part that you get to go straight.
Barron, as he makes his move on Sam Hornish Jr., and now Scott Sharp lines up, ready to do the same.
Now watch Scott Sharp's hands, very smooth, tells you his car is working well for him. Smooth acceleration out of the turn, going into turn 3 here right now. A little bit on the brake and then get on the gas and try and put 700 horsepower down to the ground.
De Ferran, Raydon, then Barron. And this battle, Hornish and Scott Sharp. Sharp sticks his nose out for a second, looks for room, can't do it. Jackaroot.
Buell has got a problem. He has pulled out of pit row with a problem with his Infinity engine. They have pulled the bonnet and they are going to work, trying to troubleshoot. That's the problem when you're not quite sure what is causing the issues. You have to start from square one, and that means going through the wiring harness and an assortment of electronic gear.
Well, Dismore with trouble, Buell with trouble, Helio Castroneves with a slap with the wall. Some pretty major names in just the first 23 laps that have a problem here at Richmond.
Well, Paul, survival of the fittest. We talked about that before with the drivers. Also will be with the cars. Now, looking at the Firestone telemetry in Scott Sharp's car, you can see the speed up to 165, 66 miles an hour going into the turn, off the throttle mid-turn, and then back on the throttle, squeezing it all the way up to about 97, 98%. And you can see he's not using the brake. You can see that third item right there, not getting any red on your screen. So that tells you he's just keeping off the brakes right now, using the car very little to make sure he's there at the end of the day.
And Firestone added in braking for us. Let me tell you though, there are also some pretty heavy lateral G's as you fling around this track in 15, 16 seconds.
And you can just ride along here, Paul, as you mentioned. See how quickly we come up to a turn. These drivers get no rest whatsoever. They'll be just touching the brakes possibly when they get in traffic. But the biggest issue they have is applying the 700 horsepower with their right foot, getting on the throttle very smoothly, being able to accelerate smoothly out of turns, not to let the back end of the car come around on them.
From time to time on the onboard camera, you notice something blocked the lens. That's rubber. They're picking off of the track. See the cars that were on the move with Scheckter from 18th up to 8th and Cheever from 17th to 13th. And Jeff Ward making his move now on Sharp.
And Sharp looks like he's had a problem here. He's had Lazier go past him first off, and then Jeff Ward, and here comes Scheckter. And I would say,
whoa,
there
did they touch?
Just a touch, a little bump and run as they call that. And they all survived.
Just a little bump and run at 150 miles an hour is that.
Well, if their heart rate wasn't going just from physically working in the car, Paul, I suspect that probably is right there.
Oh, that's just to give him a little help then. Whoa, Billy Boat's in trouble. And, oh, was that close? Oh.
Greg Ray did a great job threading the needle there between a couple of the cars.
So the caution comes on for the second time on lap 30 as Billy Boat falls victim to that wall on the inside of the backstretch.
Looks possibly at a turn 2 again, Paul. That's the tricky area, the tightest part of the racetrack for these guys. And then we talked about before, getting the power down can be a problem.
So looking for Billy Boat. He comes off the corner, loses the back end.
Looks like maybe just applying the power a little too soon, or possibly a little fluid on the racetrack. Certainly brings those cars around very quickly. You think that they're in the turn doing about 130 miles an hour, and they're again 700 horsepower. You're trying to squeeze the throttle and trying to make sure those tires don't spin out from underneath you, and boy, it happens quickly.
Eddie Cheever and Greg Ray both avoid the accident, though it was pretty close, especially for Greg Ray. The yellow comes on once again. Billy Boat, you can see him moving around in the cockpit. It's obvious that he is, in fact, okay, but there's some pretty serious damage to the left side of that race car. Gary Gerald, how's Elio Castroneves?
Well, as they get Billy Boat out of the cockpit, here's a man just released from the medical center. Elio, I know it's great disappointment. Can you tell us what happened?
I cannot, because I don't know what happened. I was just taking it easy. It was just beginning. We start getting traffic in front of us, and I got a little on the steer, but I was fine, you know. I was take it easy, and all of a sudden, actually turn 2, the car did a little move, but I thought was everything under control. I guess not, because as soon as I get out of there, I was like backwards, and I was pushing the brakes to make sure that I wouldn't hit the wall, or at least try to go back. Hey, it's tough. Today wasn't my day.
Well, it's one of the rare times this season. We'll see you next week in Kansas City.
I'll be there.
All right. Paul?
Well, the good news is that Elio Castroneves is okay. Look at the crowd here at Richmond. The bad news is that he will probably lose the points lead here if they don't put his car back into the race and if he doesn't get up to the front. We'll be back after this.
Back live at the SunTrust Indy Challenge at Richmond International Raceway. We are under our second caution of the evening already, and just 35 laps have gone on, and Elio Castroneves crashed earlier. This most recent caution is for an incident involving Billy Boat, also out of turn 2. So the pace of the race has been slowed already twice by cautions. At the moment, it is Gilles de Ferran who leads the event, with Laurent Redon running second, followed by Alex Barron, Hornish, and Buddy Lazier. There is the car that Billy Boat was driving, and they might be able to get that car back into the garage area and take a look at it and possibly fix it and get him back into competition. As Mark Dismore is on pit road once again. That appeared to be some kind of a penalty because he was there just for a short time and was waved on by his pit crew. The caution light is on here once again. However, there is the furled flag, and that indicates to the drivers that in one more lap they'll get the green flag. Join us next Sunday, July 7th over on ABC Sports for the Kansas City Indy 200. We'll be live at 1 o'clock Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific from Kansas Speedway. And we're about to go back to green, Paul.
Chevrolet Corvette pace car already off the course field under the control of Gilles de Ferran, off of turn 4, looking for the green flag. And they are back at racing speed again, and Laurent Redon looks to the inside of de Ferran. Alex Barron closes in. Sam Hornish is 4th. Buddy Lazier now up there in the battle at 5th.
Paul Lazier having the best run probably so far of the year. He's had a lot of bad luck this year, but taken out for some crashes, some mechanical situations, but he certainly would like to be able to come back here and possibly win this event like he did last year.
Yep, the defending champion at this event, the Coors Light number 91 car there. Let's go to Gary Gerald, make sure Billy Boat's okay.
Watching the action released, are you okay? And can you tell us what happened, Billy?
Well, I got hit in the left front getting into turn 3 on the lap before. And I think it broke something because
yellow is on again.
Something broke.
We've got another problem on the track.
And this time it's Scott Sharp.
Stop me, guys. I don't know what happened. All right. You're all right.
Well, that's right over, right underneath. You can see the starter stand just above his head. So that was coming off of 4. Now, Scott, we're seeing some pretty big names into the wall here. Guys who really know their craft.
Very tricky track, Paul. Now, when we had that last yellow, Scott Sharp was one of the few guys that came in. I saw him put on 4 tires, but just previous to that, we saw Scott Sharp starting to fall back a little bit when he had a few guys like Lazier and Ward start to pass him. I only presume something was going off in the car. They put on new tires to hopefully cure it, but maybe there's something more serious than that because that's very uncharacteristic of Scott Sharp.
And let's go back to Gary Gerald.
Billy, you're watching here as we see Scott Sharp walking away from his car. Is there anything unusual about the conditions? Because it seems like we're seeing a lot of incidents very early tonight.
No, I don't think anything's unusual. I mean, it's just it's a tight racetrack, and you know, it's maybe a little bit narrower than it was last year. So the high groove. I mean, we were racing too wide. You know, I don't know what happened to Scott. I don't know what happened in the other instance, but you know, it's just unfortunate for the Curb Records team. We felt we had a pretty good race car. We were headed to the front. You know, we just kind of got caught out.
Thank you for your time. Glad you're all right.
Thank you.
And the observers report on Scott Sharp that he was really out of shape coming into turn 4 and clobbered the wall hard. He's going into 3 here, Scott.
Going in, everything looks fine. The back, oh, see the back end steps out from underneath him. He corrects, and then all of a sudden it grips the car itself and then starts to head off to the wall. Nothing really a driver can do. Your just reflexes are not fast enough to catch something like that.
Yesterday in practice, Scott Sharp did a little better job getting in trouble in pretty much the same place.
Now you think about that, Paul. He's going around at 155 or 60 miles an hour, slows it down and rights it, and off he goes.
Good thing, Scotty. Good
Right
thing, buddy.
direction. Amazing. So caution again with just 43 laps complete to Farron, Redon, Barron, Hornish, Lazier, and Ward. It's the top of the field for you. Already, of course, you've got some pretty major names out of this event, or at least on the side for the moment, while they find out whether or not cars may in fact be repairable and whether or not that's worth it to try to get them back in. We'll be back.
Back here in Richmond, Virginia, you may wonder why have not the leaders come onto pit road for service? Well, it's very simple. This is 3/4 of a mile. You're not going to have to worry about fuel until you get to about lap 100 to 105. They're averaging 2.2 miles per gallon. The Firestone tires here work very, very well. In fact, there have been no complaints about tires. What teams are doing now, especially teams towards the back of the lead lap, is they are logging down these caution laps. Teams have told me if there's about 45 to 55 caution laps in the first half of the race, they could consider going with only one stop tonight. Gary Gerald, let me update you as well on Helio Castroneves. I talked to Tim Cindric, and he has gone back to the garage area. They are going to strip the backup car with as many parts as possible and see if they can get Helio back in the race. He said it really, though, looks doubtful.
Well, let's talk about the change from daytime to nighttime conditions, Jack, while we're at it. This afternoon, when they had their final warm-up of 30 minutes, the track temperature was 137 degrees. At the start of this race tonight, the track temperature was 97 degrees. We haven't had a chance to update that since we've come back to the medical center. But, of course, as the sun has now gone down, it gets a little bit cooler and cooler, and that, of course, impacts characteristics. Scott Sharp has just come out of the medical center. We're going to grab him in the same moment. Wow, is something going on here that we need to know about? Because we've had so many incidents so early. Yesterday, you got away with one. Today, you didn't get away with it.
Yeah, I don't know, Gary. The Delphi car was really running well. We decided to come in and put on some fresh tires. Just we thought that would maybe give us better longevity. And I waited a couple laps and just started to get on the gas there in turn 3, and boom, it just snapped. And I tried to catch it. By then, I was up in the high, and it wall ate me.
We were just talking about the dramatic difference from your final warm-up when the track temperature is so high to how it cools down now. How tough does it make it to get the right setup?
It's tough. I mean, you know, the track completely changes. It was really dirty with a lot of the rubber on it earlier. Obviously, track temp was huge. The air temperature was big, and that all changes. So everyone really has to just guess at what setup is going to be like, and the track's going to only get better and cooler as you go along.
Well, you won on the short track at Nazareth, but no such good fortune tonight. Glad you're okay.
Thank you.
Bob?
Well, last year in this 250-lap race, we had 9 cautions, a total of 89 laps. And here in the first 45, we have had 3 caution flags already, and we are still under, of course, the white from Scott Sharp. Lap number 3, this incident involved Greg Ray and Mark Dismore. Didn't cause a caution, but Ray and Dismore had serious contact. Mark is 3 laps down. On lap number 8, Helio Castroneves, who was running second just for no reason out of turn 2, loses it, comes across the track and hits the inside wall hard. Then on lap number 30, it was Billy Boat, and it was in the same portion of the racetrack. Coming off corner number 2, he spins and was narrowly missed by Cheever and Greg Ray. Then 10 laps later, Scott Sharp. This one was in turn number 4. He loses control quickly. The car is hard into the outside wall. Jackaroo.
Well, Bob, in talking to some of the crew chiefs down here, they are speculating as to one of the reasons why we're seeing the type of caution periods unexpectedly that we have. And Billy Boat referred to the track being narrower this year. Well, it's not that they've changed the configuration of Richmond. Instead, what has happened is these cars are going so fast, getting such good grip. It's like the track has become a grater, and the Firestone tires are like a chunk of cheese. It's grating off some small marbles that are finding their way to the outside of the racetrack. What happens then is if you go offline, Paul Page, you get in those marbles, and my gosh, you'd think you were walking on ice.
Well, it certainly created some problems, Jack, for some fairly competent drivers in the series. The SunTrust Indy Challenge is underway at Richmond International Raceway, the Indy Racing League. Second night event of the year, 8th event in the series. In part, this may be a deciding factor in the championship overall, because Helio Castroneves caught the wall very early. He was the points leader. They are struggling now to see whether or not it's even worth it to try to repair the car. You got a view a few moments ago of the Marlboro Team Penske crew working on that machine. They haven't yet decided whether or not it's worth the big struggle, but it could affect the points drastically. Great view from just in front of the Chevrolet Corvette pace car, dialing off the track, field back into control of the leader right from the start. He's led 53 laps, Gilles de Ferran. And there is the restart order for you. Pace picks up, and we're green once again. Buddy Lazier moves to the inside of Sam Hornish Jr., and he's got him.
Very clean move, Paul. Very decisive. Tells you he's very confident in how his car is working if he does it right off the start.
And another car on the back stretch. This time it's George Mack. That's the second visit to that wall for George.
Now, Paul, you see all those guys on the right-hand side? That's all the boardmen for all the cars that are out there tonight.
Really touch the throttle.
Those guys are going to be a little bit gun-shy for the rest of the evening standing out there.
Hear what he said, that he barely even touched the throttle.
Well, after a restart, cold tires, a lot of fuel on board. Track is still greasy. We haven't had enough running yet to get some of that USAC rubber off we talked about. You would not think it would make that much of a difference, but those guys ran in the heat of the day, put down a lot of rubber, and these guys are probably just trying to drive on marbles right now.
The view from turn 2. Here comes Mack. Oh, barely off the corner.
Maybe a little bit low coming off the turn, also a little bit tight. Keeping that car a little bit tight makes the back end want to come around. You can see him top of your screen, already has lost control, and not a real hard hit, but certainly enough to put the car out of the race for the evening.
Yesterday, during practice, George Mack had a similar problem. He caught the outside of the wall, then across the track, and watch him hit the attenuated barrels full of water at the end. He said he was soaking wet when that one was through. The crew worked almost 24 straight hours trying to get the car ready once again. They did so. He started in the back, and now here's the end of all of that labor, sitting against the wall. We'll be back with more.
Jim Kimmons, our cameraman, following around the corner here in the Redon pit as you see Robbie Buell's number 24 being pushed back into position. He came in and they took the car behind the wall, did a lot of work. There was a problem with ignition wiring. We've got the piece that comes off the dash, and right over in here, just this little tiny wire right here burns and it disconnects. That causes the problem for Buell. That puts him down so many laps, but it's been repaired, and very shortly as they get ready to put the nose back on, he will be back on the track rejoining this field. Paul?
Gary had put him down 41 laps, currently in 21st place, though there's some other cars out that will be scored a little bit higher a little bit later. Well, Sunday night interleague baseball is in full swing on ESPN, and it doesn't get any bigger than this. Mike Piazza and the Mets visit crosstown rivals Derek Jeter and the New York Yankees. Sunday night baseball presented by Nextel at 8 Eastern. Coverage begins with Major League Baseball All-Star Selection Show at 7 Eastern. For more, log on to ESPN.com. Pace car slows down.
Let's update you very quickly before they go back to green. The car number 20 of Sam Schmidt Motorsports, they have just radioed to Richie Hearn. If we can get 3 more caution laps before we have to pit, we can make this race on 1 stop. So it's getting real fluid and a little hinky down here on pit road.
Gilles de Ferran leads the field back again. Don right in behind him in second place. Alex Barron is third. Schechter tries to make a move on Hornish. Last two green flags, Hornish has given way to the car behind him. Not this time. Schechter begins to work him hard.
The reason that's happening with the Pennzoil Panther team is by design, Paul. They have talked to Sam extensively during the caution, reminding him about how these cars have a tendency to step out when they drop the green flag on a restart. They like the way the car is operating right now. Sam concurs from inside the cockpit. They say it's a long way to go before they'll begin to flex their muscle.
You're probably going to hear it all up and down pit road on two-way communications between the pits and the drivers tonight. Patience, patience, patience.
Absolutely, Paul, you need patience, but there also has to be a point where you have to go between aggression and caution if you're going to pass traffic. We see Sam starting to have a peak on the inside of Lazier. You have to be a little bit aggressive on these three-quarter-mile tracks to be able to get past somebody because it is so tight.
Schechter and Hornish. Now over on the front side with Schechter solidifying his position and Felipe Giafoni behind Hornish in the Pennzoil Panther car now.
Thomas Schechter did not have a good qualifying run, and Owen Snyder and the rest of the Red Bull team went to work, taking that car virtually completely apart. They discovered that they felt the car was sort of porpoising its way down the straightaways, especially in the corners. They made major changes, and thus far, they say, Thomas reports it's been all for the positive. That's the problem when you don't qualify well, though. You've got to work through heavy race traffic.
He started 18th, Thomas Schechter. Now runs in 5th behind Buddy Lazier. And is closing down on Lazier pretty quickly. Gary Gerald.
George Mack is the latest to come out of the infield care center. You obviously are okay from a physical standpoint. Tell us what happened here in that pieced-together race car.
I don't know. The car is okay 1 minute and it's not the next. It's a little hazardous right now. I think maybe because of the Silver Crown rubber, but we had made some changes in the last stop to kind of help it from being neutral, but it's still just right around really quick.
We heard him on the radio say he was barely on the throttle, and it bit him, guys.
Well, again, in the drivers' meeting, Brian Barnhart, who, by the way, along with this driver here, Sam Hornish Jr., celebrates a birthday this week. Sam will be 23. We won't discuss what Brian will be, but Brian warned him again and again, patience, watch out for the Silver Crown rubber. Be very careful in the early going.
And, Paul, you have to think about that. When they talk about that, the cars that you usually see running here, going around here at 120 or 130 miles an hour, these guys qualified at an average of 168 miles an hour. That's some 35 to 40 miles an hour faster than what the Winston Cup cars run here. They're carrying a lot more speed through the turns. So what ends up happening if something goes wrong, like we saw with Scott Sharp, there's not much time to have a correction, and you usually find yourself going towards the wall. There's not much time at all, as I mentioned, in a correction to hopefully get that car righted, and that's the problem these guys have. There's not a lot of width at this racetrack.
Schechter tries to move on Buddy Lazier, Red Bull car, but Lazier is not going to have any of it. And that slows him down a little and puts him in the grasp of Sam Hornish Jr. again. Felipe Giafoni just behind Sam Hornish Jr. If you were our guest for the IRL Today show on the air just before this one, as it is weekly, you got a great idea of who Felipe Giafoni is and his marvelous racing family. Boys, he's proven it this year. That great run at the Indy 500 and constantly staying in the fight during the rest of the season. On board with Felipe Giafoni.
And on that segment, Paul, you talked about, we saw that he used to do all this go-karting back with Tony Kanaan and Helio Castroneves back in his home of Brazil, go-karting all the time, racing against each other from the age of about 9 years old. These guys have been around each other for a long, long time, and now they've made it to the big time.
Felipe Giafoni's race cam brought to you by Firestone. With a great view from these onboard cameras. Look at the dash light up. All the information that now, used to be if you had a tack and a oil pressure and temperature, you were happy. Now you can can literally dial anything into that you want to.
All that information's on the steering wheel. They have a system they call real-time telemetry. All the information is being beamed back into the pits for the engineers to see as the car is going around the racetrack. So the engineers can literally see on their laptop exactly where the race car is on their screen and all the functions of the race car and exactly everything the driver is doing. And sometimes the engineer knows what's going wrong with the car, if indeed there is something happening, before the driver does.
Buddy Lazier was able to maneuver around Alex Barron. Lazier now sets third. There's Barron, Schechter, Hornish, and Felipe Giafoni. 82 laps. 83 now are complete. They roll off so quickly here.
17 seconds a lap. Remember, just coming out of turn 2, they're watching right here. Only 3.5 seconds of going straight. Not much time for a driver to take a rest. Drivers like to take their hands off the wheel, maybe stretch their grip a little bit, not to tighten up their hands or their forearms. Drivers are always continuously working their shoulders and their arms around this racetrack because they spend most of their time turning.
During the last yellow, here comes DeFerrin as he closes up on Mark Dismore. Looks like he had to jump on the brakes pretty hard to get around him.
Mark looked like he might have had a problem. DeFerrin did the right thing, slowed up to make sure he didn't get involved in anything that might be going on with Mark.
And as that happened, Loren Raydon, we didn't get to see it, but Loren Raydon got around DeFerrin for the lead. So whatever slowed up DeFerrin as he came up behind Mark Dismore, it allowed Raydon to make the move and make it quick. There it is for you, Scott. Raydon on the right of the screen, DeFerrin the left.
Oh, see, actually DeFerrin gets pinched off, just touches the back of Dismore's car, sends him off stride, loses a bit of speed here, and sure enough, here comes Raydon underneath, getting past both of them, taking the lead.
And if you're going to do it at Richmond, that's one of the better ways to do it.
Well, he had some help there. No confrontation with Gilles DeFerrin to get by him, and he also stretched out a fair amount of lead right now. He's got about half the length of the front stretch.
And Loren Raydon, driving for Eric Bachelard in the MyJack car, is now leading for the first time in his IRL career. Hornish comes up to battle with Giafoni. Take a look on Buddy's car. Look at the right rear. See that smoke? They're reporting a fire under there. Oh, yeah, there is. Just
sounds like there's coming.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, do you see fire? Oh, they want him in. I can see fire. Hey, bring it in.
Now what goes on there, Paul, he might have a bit of an oil leak actually coming from one of the lines or something of that nature to get onto the exhaust to cause that fire. The problem you have with that, though, is that if the oil leak gets to be very large, it gets on that right rear tire, Buddy would lose control.
Gary Gerald, here comes Buddy Lazier.
Well, the man who dominated this race last year, his crew waving for him to hit his marks. He's now in sight, 3 pits away, 2 pits, 1 pit. Here he is. They look at the back of the car. We can see the smoke rolling out. Now one of the firemen reaches in, a couple of sprays of water. The rest of the crew routinely is changing tires and refueling. Now a lot of water is going, and now we've got fire. We've got fire. Gotta get out of the way.
And that's a methanol fire now.
Crew members running in all directions, water being thrown in all directions.
There's still fire burning out there by the edge of the pit too, Gary. Be careful.
Yeah, we've moved back off the wall. Boy, this is the one thing that everybody dreads with these type of cars, and water coming from all the adjacent pits. From what we can see, it looks like it now may be under control. A very heartbreaking moment. Oh my. Everything else looked routine as they sprayed the hot spot on the right rear. They completed the tires and the refueling, but then somehow the refueling, as the nozzle was being pulled away, there was a spill and it ignited.
And they've also put the yellow light out now. Here it is. Car came off the jacks. He hit the throttle and it lit up fuel on both sides.
Paul, absolutely. There's probably a fuel leak coming out, and that might have been what's caused the fire in the very beginning. And you saw when he blips the throttle, he got some sparks coming out the exhaust, probably enough to ignite everything that you see that's going on around there. Now, we've gone yellow for the simple reason that we have so much water, so much fluid coming across pit lane. Cars will not be allowed to be into the pit lane until this is actually all dried up.
Well, what we have to think about there as you watch it, boy, that could have been much worse than it actually was. You see how all of the crews get together and they all dump water on the methanol. Water dilutes it, takes it down below a composition where it can no longer catch fire. So it works on methanol, doesn't work on gasoline. There's Buddy and his wife. Thank goodness he's okay. You saw him just literally drag him out of the car. But the yellow is out, and the pits are closed on the 97th lap, and that could be critical while they clean up.
Down in the pits here with Buddy Lazier, they're scrambling us out of the pit area so they can try to clean up a huge mess. But the important thing, Buddy, you're okay. How about your crew, as far as you know? Is everybody all right?
Yeah, everybody's fine. Everybody's fine. We just didn't want to. We were hoping it'd put itself out because for the first time this year, we had a car capable of winning, and we were going to the front. And it's a long night, and we know how long, how physically demanding it is. And I was just really looking forward to this one. We were really running good. So we had a little bit of a fire, and I was kind of hoping that it would put itself out, because but it turned out to be a major fire, and the motor expired.
That little bit of a fire, was it impacting it all the way the car was working? Because I know you said, I wanted to stay out there.
That's right. No, I mean, the car was really working good. We've had a tough season, so when you finally got something that I know I would have been to the front before long, and the car was really good. So you just I think all the guys are mostly disappointed not to be able to finish the night because we were running so good, a lot more so than the fire.
Well, I'll say that your guys are very fortunate, too, that nobody was hurt, because that was a very frightening moment. Yeah. Thank you. I'm sorry for all the tough luck, man.
Oh, methanol fire, you can't, it just has a very little color to it. Yeah. So it's hard to see. But at night, it looks bigger than it is. So.
Thank you, buddy. He's so nonchalant about all this, guys. My heart's still pounding. Bob?
Well, I would say so. That was a very scary moment for everyone here. And as Buddy indicated, during the daytime, a methanol fire is very difficult to see, if not impossible. But because we're at dusk or a little bit beyond here, it was much easier to see. And it appeared to be a very, very serious situation down there in the pit area. Every year there are advances in technology and there are advances in safety. And certainly one of the areas that is most looked at from one year to the next is what we just saw down in the Buddy Lazier pit.
Fire, the enemy of every race car driver. The flash that brings fear to fans and puts the danger of motorsports into a pyrotechnic frame. In Richmond, Virginia, the E.I. DuPont Company maintains an advanced fiber systems laboratory that includes ongoing research in garment and clothing systems, utilizing their patented aramid fibers and fabrics, more commonly known as Nomex. A 6-foot, 1-inch composite mannequin known as Thermoman is outfitted with 122 heat sensors. It's the centerpiece of DuPont's research. Decked out in 100% cotton, Thermoman quickly becomes Charbroiled Man, the sensors predicting critical burns and definite life-threatening situations. When a Nomex jumpsuit covers Thermoman's cotton underwear, the safety envelope increases. The outer Nomex material, first developed in the 70s by DuPont in the United States military, is designed to offer a range of flash fire protection. It's inherently thermal resistant. It's built right into the fiber, meaning no amount of laundering or wear can remove it. A simple Nomex jumpsuit decreases the burn potential. But when cotton underwear is replaced by Nomex underwear, and Thermoman dons a Simpson Nomex driver's suit, his protection increases. Measurements taken in half-second intervals and sent to a sophisticated computer show that the amount, degree, and location of second and third degree burns plummets. Nomex will not melt, it won't burn or support combustion. It will provide pit crews and drivers protection from intense heat and flame, giving them valuable seconds needed to be rescued or escape from fire.
Just a few moments ago, this was the scene down in the Buddy Lazier pit. His crew members yanked him out of the car. Everybody okay after what could have been a very serious situation.
Hey, Al Unser Jr. here. Stay tuned because soon I'll give you a special number to call. You could win an all-access pass to next year's Indy 500. Stick around.
107 of 250 laps completed in the SunTrust Indy Challenge here at Richmond International Raceway. They are working feverishly in the pits to get the pit area of Buddy Lazier dried up because a huge amount of water was placed there when the fire broke out. And of course, there are many drivers out there on the track right now that need a pit stop, and they're hoping that the pits will open soon, but they will not open them until most of the fluid there is up. After 108 laps, the leader is Laurent Redon. We have had 2 leaders, the other one being Gilles de Ferran, who led from the pole position, and 5 caution periods so far. Those involved in crashes have included Helio Castro-Neves, who crashed on the 8th lap of the race. Billy Boat also lost control on lap 30. Scott Sharp on the 40th lap, and George Mack on the 55th. And besides that, there are some other developments that have occurred here in the first few laps. Mark Dismore is considerably behind the field as he had contact with Greg Ray early on. Robbie Buell is back on the racetrack, although he is 43 laps down. He went back to repair some burned wiring. There are the top 10. Back in a moment with more.
Back at Richmond International, the Indy Racing League, and the pits just opened. They got the water cleaned off the track. Leader Laurent Redon in and out, 12.9 seconds. De Ferran away in 10.
And De Ferran will beat Laurent Redon out of pit road. The Marlboro Team Penske crew took a good hard look at the front wing area of the car. They were concerned that when he tangled and gave Redon the opportunity to take over the lead, it may have bent the wing. It didn't, at least from the cursory look that the crew gave it, but it did leave a huge black mark right on the tip of the nose cone.
And while we're talking about Marlboro Team Penske,
We'll get it back.
Helio Castro-Neves' team.
They hit it earlier. They took advantage of one of those yellows. They've got some track position.
Look at them there. They're still working on that car, and Scott, there appears to be a hope, especially with the caution laps, that they'll get her back in.
Well, Paul, this works into Penske's favor with Helio Castro-Neves because what's happening now is the race pace is much slower than it would be if it was green. So these guys are getting a bit of a delight here because as it's very quiet, when they're working in the garage, they have the opportunity to get the car possibly out there and not be as many laps down and hopefully pick up some positions and gain some valuable points for the championship.
But Scott Goodyear, here is the conundrum that some of the leaders now face. We are completing lap, 114. Your leader, your present leader, of course, Gilles de Ferran, had hoped that he would be able to stretch his pit stop to 135, which would have put him in the window to have a one-stop race. Having coming in early, Paul Page, now you've got a big question mark for the last 30, 40 laps of this event.
Well, not just that, Jack. You've got right now Greg Ray in the lead. He stopped on the 45th lap, and Jeff Ward is right behind him. He stopped on the 58th, so they can go on the lead for some time here if de Ferran can't get around them.
You got to like the shot that Greg Ray has here. Did you know that on his mother's side of the family, they traced their heritage back to one Robert E. Lee?
Well, he might need the assistance of General Lee, whose statue is on Monument Boulevard here in Richmond. And of course, he lived here during and after the war between the states, as they call it here. There's the restart order. And Ray brings him back. Ward moves up on him. Unser Jr. Whoa! De Ferran watches it just a second and catches it. Unser Jr. now right behind de Ferran.
As we ride along, Paul, you can see how dark it's getting out now, a little bit of dusk. The lights are on, a big difference from when we started this race.
De Ferran tries to make a move on Ward. Here comes Redon as he makes a great move on Unser Jr.
And in close quarters, you see how much confrontation they have to be and how close they have to be on this very tight track. No mistake room for any of those two drivers.
Now here comes Alex Barron, who looked so good in the early going. He's back at it again, and so is Thomas Scheckter. Don's looking to get inside of the 9 car, the Target Chip Ganassi machine.
Ward was trying to run a little bit of a protective line going into turn 1 there. Sort of ran down the middle of the road, but Laurent was so strong, he certainly made a nice move to get underneath him.
Meanwhile, guys, back up front, A.J. Foyt has issued the marching order to Greg Ray. He just told him, take no prisoners. You only have a half tank of fuel, so your car should operate better.
Greg Ray's got to be feeling terrific about being up there. First time that he has led an IRL event since Nashville last year, almost a year ago.
And Paul, if you recall, Greg Ray did not run in this race last year because he was involved in a practice accident and got knocked out, ended up watching this race from the grandstands.
So in reality, his first run here, Greg Ray's out front. DeFerrin now second behind him. Then Redon, then Ward. And Barron keeps working on Unser Jr. Schechter there is a very interested spectator. Barron loses momentum. Schechter takes advantage of it. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Nice.
Very nice.
That's the price that you pay, as we saw with Barron. You take a stab at it. If you don't get by, you lose some speed and momentum, and sure enough, there's somebody close behind. They'll get you.
Outside. On board with Giafoni. That's ahead of them is Mark Dismore. There's the view from Dismore. Now, don't forget, Dismore had problems early on. And Dismore is actually 4 laps behind the race, but he's running pace equal to the leaders with no trouble at all now. Hornish goes side by side with Dare. 125 laps, the halfway distance. It's an official race. 126 and counting, 250 the scheduled distance. No problems with weather tonight. It's really a beautiful evening for watching a race here in Richmond. The track temperature is still pretty warm. It's only dropped about 5 degrees since the start.
So right along with Sam Hornish, you can see right now he's pacing off laps. We know Sam so well, he just doesn't seem like he's really going off for the lead right now. We heard some information from the pits before. Just put some time in, make sure you're counting off the laps, and it certainly seems what he's doing right now.
Looking back now from Felipe Giafoni at Sam Hornish.
Paul, we talked about how hot it is here with the high temperature. It's down to 92 right now, but I'll tell you something. These guys inside the car are very hot, probably about 135-degree cockpit temperature, because you have the engine just behind you and all the radiators to either side of you.
Well, look at this. Look how easy Dare pokes his nose underneath Hornish.
Well, Paul, I said Hornish didn't seem like he wanted to go to the front, but I'd have to say he seems like he has a race car that's going away from him. I heard Andy Brown say, use the rear bar, use the rear bar. So he's telling him to use the driver aid cockpit adjustments that he has inside. Has an adjustment bar for the front and the rear. He can make the car handle differently.
Go up to the front of the field. We watched DeFerrin and Redon second and third. The leader is Greg Ray. He's pitted out of sequence. So is Unser Jr. and Jeff Ward. Look at that. There goes Ray. There's the second place DeFerrin. Is that in part because the car's lighter?
It's a little bit
clear
lighter.
Traffic.
Absolutely clear traffic. Nobody in front of them. These three guys right now have pretty much a clear racetrack. You see Jeff Ward running very strongly behind him also. But right now, you can hear he's 3 seconds ahead is what he's telling him, and he's telling him that he's got a half load of fuel just to let his driver know, Gilles DeFerrin, that run your own pace. Don't worry about him up in front. If he pulls away, he's got a light fuel load.
Let's go to Jack Arute.
Figure you are absolutely correct. When it came down into the Pentel Panther team, the handle has gone away on Sam Hornish's car. I asked John Barnes, the team manager, what was the problem? Was the car pushing or was it loose? He shrugged his shoulders and he said, both. You've driven cars like that. Those are the evil ones.
Jack, you're absolutely right. What usually ends up happening is that it's loose going into the turn, and then it sort of understeers in the middle, and then you have a problem coming off. And when we talk about race cars and their characteristics, when a driver's calling over the radio and he's saying the car is loose, it's loose, that means the back end wants to swap ends with the front, and it wants to come around like we've seen a few cars do tonight. And it basically takes control of the driver, and he has no control whatsoever. He just becomes a passenger.
Now for the first time, Greg Ray is going to have to work through some traffic. And that's going to put second and third, DeFerrin and Redon on top of him pretty quickly. The caution here, as always, must be that once the first car comes past you, you need to look and make sure there's not a second and a third one coming.
Well, as it did with Robin McGee, as DeFerrin goes underneath him right now, and then Greg Ray's going to have his sights set on John Herb, who's just a little bit in front of him, who seems like he's going to be able to get past. And all those guys are going to know that, like you say, Paul, absolutely, there's not one, but here comes a freight train of drivers coming past.
And if you're doing the passing, not just momentum, but just coming slightly out of the throttle every now and then, pacing yourself so you arrive at the spot you want to relative to the slower car at exactly the right moment.
Absolutely. You see Al Jr. doing some great work there. You want to be able to time it so you don't lose too much momentum, and if you can get somebody either going into the turn or get them coming out, that's exactly what you want. You don't want to get all bundled up in the middle of the turn with the driver in front of you, because it'll slow your speed down.
Thomas Scheckter very wisely is now settled in, just keeping an eye on Unser Jr. ahead of him. Unser Jr. is 5th, Scheckter is 6th.
And one of the things that's happened with Thomas Scheckter is he's changed his approach to the races here in the rest of the IRL season. He says he sat down with Eddie Cheever and said being blindingly fast is no longer the thing that he's looking for. Thomas Scheckter says now his goal is simply to finish some races.
And that's exactly what you need to do in order to find success here in Richmond. See DeFerrin and Redon closing in.
ESPN's presentation of the SunTrust Indy Challenge, brought to you by SunTrust, responding to your financial needs for over 100 years. Pennzoil, we're driving protection. Imagistics, providing dependable office document equipment and unparalleled service. And Firestone, America's tire since 1900.
And as we return, the caution comes out for John Herb. He's pulled across the beautiful signage for the SunTrust Indy Challenge that it separates on the grass between the main stretch and the pit area, brought out the caution, slowed everybody down.
And Paul, if you look right here, you can see his tire is a little bit flat, pancaked against the wall. I think he caught the wall coming off of turn 4, and which sent him off into the inside of the racetrack. He ended up on the grass, so he's probably just pancaked the wall itself.
Now look, maybe we can see here. There's Herb after he pancaked the wall. It was a little more than a pancake. He rode that thing for a while.
Very lucky not to get clipped by all the other traffic that's coming along behind him. Remember, they're going along at about 155 miles an hour, and he's going across the racetrack, so they got a lot of decisions to be made, split-second decisions to make sure that they miss him.
But this may actually work to Greg Ray's advantage. Ray has now over 100 laps since he's been in the pits.
And Paul, when the John Herb car went streaking into the grass, Greg Ray came on the radio and said, "There's the caution we need, guys. There's the caution we need." They are going to make some changes on the car. They expect them to come on the pit road as soon as the pits are open.
So we got the pressures adjusted.
Given the right yellow.
We'll do a little wing work for you.
Given the yellow situation in the early going, Greg Ray should be able to make the finish after this stop. The question is now, what do the rest of these guys do? What about DeFerrin? What about Redon? For that matter, Jeff Ward and Al Unser Jr. are out from their pit stop. Ward's 94 laps out, as is Unser Jr.
He'll turn in before you. Just follow him. He'll turn in before you. He's just down 4 or 5 pits
Penske
before
plays
us.
it, brings
right
DeFerrin in with the leader.
Here we go. Nice.
There's an age-old adage.
5, 4,
follow the
leader. 3,
Always follow the leader. You
1,
never know if there's another yellow between now and the end of the
But here is the key now. The team, A.J. Foyt's team, must go to work and complete their work before Gilles de Ferran, who's much further up pit road, completes his. They take out a fuel. They are done. What will happen with Gilles de Ferran? Will he get out first? Yes.
Yeah, not even close. In fact, Ray gives way to both Giafone and Unser Jr. as he comes off the pit road. So de Ferran, once again, the real key in a short track is how good your crew can do on the stop. They can make all the difference. Penske's may have.
Caution on for the 6th time here this evening. Most recent caution caused by John Herb as he got into the wall coming out of corner number 4. Helio Castroneves crashed on the 8th lap, but he has just returned to the race after some repairs to the car. The Marlboro Team Penske contingent hope that they can perhaps keep him in the points lead, but he, as I said, is 147 laps down. Sam Hornish Jr. is in 3rd position in the point standings coming into this event, but he is in a very close battle for that 3rd position with Felipe Giafone. There is Hornish, and right now he is being shown in the 8th position. Felipe Giafone is shown in the 5th spot right now. There he is as the drivers are cleaning off the tires and getting set to go back to racing here in just a few moments. Laurent Redon is the leader of the race. Alex Barron is 2nd. Then the battle off pit road, which was won by Gilles de Ferran. Jeff Ward is 4th, then Giafone. Unser, Ray, Hornish, Scheckter, and Dare are the top 10. And the only other 2 cars on the lead lap at the moment are Richie Hearn and Eddie Cheever Jr. Average speed of the race right now with the 6 caution periods that we have had at 96 miles an hour. Gilles de Ferran has led the most laps, 84. Greg Ray was out front for 41 as we take a look at Roger Penske. And Laurent Redon has been in front for 33 laps. Well, the yellow lights are flashing right now, but they'll be turning green in just a moment as we are set to go back to racing with just 1 car there affecting the restart order. Paul?
It's Laurent Redon that brings the field down. Then, of course, Dismore, who wisely comes to the inside and lets Barron and de Ferran around him as the green flag comes out. And de Ferran comes around Barron. Boy, look at him bottle up there around Hornish. Hornish comes back to the flag very slow.
Hornish has to be a driver that's not very happy with his race car right now because it's very uncharacteristic of Sam Hornish to try and give away spots on a restart. He's usually going the opposite way.
And fellas, based upon what we've seen in the first half of this race, all of the lead cars that pitted during that caution period should not, I repeat, not be back on pit road.
And Jack, Laurent Redon is not a happy young Frenchman. He has told his crew that he all this work for nothing. Now we got yellow.
It's Sarah.
Damn it. Yeah, 10-4. 10-4.
Sarah Fisher, who now has a ride to the end of the season, finds herself in trouble. She was running 3 laps behind. Another quick little spin.
On the bottom of the racetrack, Paul, cold tires, and sometimes it's so difficult to get the power down. And you can see once the back end comes around, it goes up to the wall. We heard her say on the radio that that one hurt, and you can hear her breathe hard, almost like probably knocked the wind out of her.
And Scott, what she did say just before that, as she reported to the crew, is I was just trying too hard to pass that guy.
So Sarah Fisher out of competition, 162 laps complete. As she looks over the damage to her new car, and it slows the race once again at Richmond.
Gilles de Ferran and Helio Castroneves are 3 of the 7 nominees for Best Driver at the 2002 ESPY Awards. See them live on the red carpet Wednesday, July 10th at 8 o'clock Eastern Time on ESPN. For all the ESPY Award nominations, log on to ESPN.com. Down to Gary.
Herb is out of the medical center, and boy, it's been pull a number going through that brand new facility. You're obviously okay. Is this a situation where marble buildup outside the groove ends up costing you?
Yeah, absolutely. The whole surface out there is a little bit slippery, and you're having to throttle drive the car a little bit. You carry a lot of speed in the corner, and if you carry a little too much, you end up having to chase with a little more throttle, because if you get out of the throttle or get on the brakes, it ends up pushing up in the marbles. And that's kind of where I was. I got in the middle there with a little too much speed and tried to chase with a little throttle. That didn't work and ended up in the fence.
All right. Well, again, we're glad you're all right as well.
Thanks, Gary. Appreciate it.
All right. Bob?
His was the 6th caution. We're under the 7th caution caused by Sarah Fisher. Laurent Redon was leading the race before the Sarah Fisher incident. He made a pit stop, and so the lead goes back to Gilles de Ferran, with Alex Barron running 2nd, then Jeff Ward, Felipe Giafoni, and Al Unser Jr. We'll be right back.
Back at the SunTrust Indy Challenge, I'm Paul Page with Scott Goodyear and Bob Jenkins topside. Gary Gerald and Jack Arute down below in the pits. We're on the 170th lap of the 250-lap Indy Racing League event. 7 cautions to this point. There were 9 last year. It's been a tough night for this group of drivers. All out of the race, the most recent being Sarah Fisher. First time in her ride that'll take her to the end of the season. She raced for Drive Reinbold Racing at Indy, and now they've arranged a full-time deal for her. So she can't be happy with the fact that she got the car into the wall. It appeared to be okay, but she was gesturing to her back. Now, don't forget to visit the IRL online for real-time results and the new Speedcast fantasy game. Log on now to ESPN.com, keyword ABC IRL. So now we got to think a little bit about the fuel strategy. It's de Ferran that'll lead them back. Laurent Redon has stopped and taken on a full load of fuel, but Larry Blair and his team, Alex Barron, their driver, they're playing the game. It's been 59 laps since their last stop, and they run in 2nd. They're the only one that's really in that position. They're going to hold out a little bit longer. You think that one can pay off?
Oh, that's a long stretch, Paul. I mean, you can probably get 90 or 100 laps out of a tank or fuel, and right now we've got to get to 250 laps, so he's going to have a lot of yellow here, and I don't think he's going to make it. You know, they played the game before, and they did it very well at Indy and put themselves in a position. That's all you can ask to do, and with all the knowledge they have down there with that team, they just might pull something out of their hat.
And for the Rayovac car, this turns out to be a great year for Alex Barron. Gilles de Ferran, the current leader, may have that smile all the way to the end of the race. 172 laps. They sent the safety car out just to recheck, because there was a report of some debris on the track right underneath the starter stand. Now the Chevrolet Corvette pace car pulls down to the inside, and the control of the field again goes over to the leader. 1 lap before the restart. There's the order.
You're doing a great job tonight. Great job. Let's bring her home.
Jeff Ward and Barron lining up behind Gilles de Ferran. In 6th place there, that's Schechter. He's had a good night. He's been tiptoeing and doing a good job of it. De Ferran jumps hard as the green flag comes out, and everybody tries to move on Barron. Here comes Unser Jr. to the inside of Barron. Barron's fallen backwards steadily.
Boy, Unser's been impressive all throughout the year. As soon as he gets a taste of victory up front, he really goes for it. We've said before that we have a new Al Unser. He's back, he's fit, he's focused, he's been fast, and he certainly wants to win.
Sam Hornish Jr. comes around Barron, and that puts him down to 7th place in just a lap and a half. Now Schechter and Felipe Giafoni go at it for 3rd.
Schechter, one of the rookies this year, one of these guys that has no oval track experience, coming into this country, has done just a great job, has been on pole, has led a lot of laps, almost had Indy 1 before he had a problem with turn 4 and hit the wall. Also has been the youngest driver ever in the Indy Racing League to win a pole position.
The infield care center here at Richmond is brand new, and it's seen way too much service this evening. So far, all of the reports have been good. What about Sarah Fisher, Gary Gerald?
Well, she's just been released. Sarah, we heard you say that one hurt, guys, on the radio. You're okay, and how's your back?
I'm fine. I mean, I took a look at the car, and it looks like we're going to be able to make it to Kansas. We only did a couple things to the suspension, so I don't know. We'll see. I was just trying real hard, and there was a couple slow cars up in front of me, and Hornish and those guys were up there. And I mean, it's a hard thing to do, not to race. And you know, I think I just got greedy, and we left the car alone on the last pit stop. We didn't put any push back into it because it was perfect. And I think I hit the transition, so all three things of those didn't boil out for the attrition factor.
Well, I know it's a tough night, but it's great to have you back in the race car on a regular basis.
Thank you. It's great. SunTrust Banks have been along, help us get here for this weekend, so hopefully we can continue on for the rest of the year.
Paul?
Battle for fifth, Unser Jr. and Sam Hornish. Let's just watch. Oh! And this time it's Eddie Cheever. The 51 Red Bull car and Laurent Redon. What's going on here?
That's a
Later on, if
shame.
you can hear me, just raise your hand. Thanks.
So both Cheever and Redon, and we don't know yet if it was two different accidents or one together. Cheever throws off the collar and is ready to climb out of the car. Physically, he's okay. Temperamentally, I'm not sure where he's at. And Laurent Redon, who had been so promising, looked so good.
That
Imagine he just got a little anxious. They made him stop. He wasn't sure that he liked that idea of stopping and going back under the yellow, going back considerably. Yeah, it's both of them together.
Laurent hit very hard. Car gets up over the wall, almost along the fence a little bit, and it comes back down very hard, up over the top of Eddie Cheever by the looks of it.
Redon really up in the air there for a second. Here's a better view. You can see what happened to Redon. Boy, look at that car try to fly.
Now, we haven't seen the previous section yet, but it looks like maybe Eddie had a problem because it looked like he was already around 180 degrees, and Laurent probably tried to go around the top of him. But for the young Frenchman who has not had any experience on ovals before, this is probably going to be a hard hit for him to remember this by.
Well, we're getting a report, Scott, from the course observers that Redon went low on Eddie and tapped him, and that set off the accident. That comes from course observers. We haven't actually seen that here. Redon, thankfully, now out of his car and walks to Dr. Henry Bach's medical vehicle. Dr. Bach always on the circuit and drives right to the accident and then decides whether or not an ambulance will be needed. So now Eddie Cheever and Laurent Redon will make the trip to that infield care center. 184 laps complete.
The SunTrust Indy Challenge here at Richmond International Raceway is 186 laps old, and we are under our 8th caution. It's time for our mid-season report, since this is the halfway point of the season. And each of the announcers is going to take one subject and tell you who they think has had the best. As far as I'm concerned, I know it's a little bit early to determine who's going to win the championship, but as far as the midseason report is concerned, I think you have to give the nod to Helio Castroneves. He's been able to climb the fence a couple of times this year, and although I think it will be a great battle down to the wire between Marlboro Team Penske and the Pennzoil Panther team, my choice right now to win the championship is Helio Castroneves, although he has not had a good race here tonight. Jack Arute, what about the best drive of 2002 so far?
The best drive, Bob, you got to go back and do some California dreaming. Go all the way back to Fontana, California. And this wheel-to-wheel battle with then Jacques Lazier on the inside and Sam Hornish on the outside. And look how close they are at the line for the finish. Gary, what about you? What's your choice?
Well, we're talking about frustration, and there have been a lot of drivers and a lot of teams that have had great frustration in the first half of the season, but certainly the rookie Thomas Scheckter leading 85 laps at Indianapolis, inside 30 laps to go when he got to the marbles into the wall. Oh, what great frustration in perhaps the greatest race of the entire season, and for that matter, for anybody, career. Let's go upstairs.
Well, Gary Gerald, Scott Goodyear, and I drew the greatest moments and rookies, and moments was my assignment. And I got to tell you, that's hard to pick out. You just showed one of them, but when you sort it all down, let's go to Texas. The final mile in the run at Texas with Jeff Ward, pushing alongside of Al Unser Jr., gets a little help from Ayrton Dare, and takes the victory. That's my best moment.
And Paul, if you have to look at all the rookies that we have this year, we have such a strong crop of rookies. Thomas Scheckter has been one that you thought would win by now. Same with Laurent Rodin. I like Laurent because he actually came here with no oval experience whatsoever, a little bit of F1 experience, Le Mans experience, qualified 4th here, 10th overall in the points, but I think we'll see him win before the year is over.
Well, and you got to give a lot of credit as you take a look at Thomas Scheckter to the rookie crop this year. It has been spectacular. So that's our mid-season report.
And of course, this caution flag was brought out for an accident involving Laurent Rodin that you just talked about. He and Eddie Cheever coming together down in the area between turns 3 and 4, and that's caused a major cleanup to be underway. Gary?
Cheever, the latest to come out of the medical center. Eddie, obviously you're okay. I go back to your quote of a year ago saying it's like flying fighter planes in a gym. You still standing by that? Has anything changed here at Richmond?
It's 2 years in a row that I've ended my race in turn 3. It's a great racetrack. I love racing here. Didn't have much of a car today. Redon made a mistake. We're both sitting in the ambulance. He turns around and says he's sorry. So as far as I'm concerned, that's the end of the story. I mean, there's not really much to do. But disappointed. Wrecked a lot of cars this year. Maybe we go to Kansas where he won last year. Something might turn around and have something good. Now I got to get back to the pits and watch Thomas.
All right, thanks, Eddie. Glad he's all right. Jack?
Hey, Gary, look who's decided to show up at an Indy Racing League event. Chip Ganassi owns cars and kart, IRL and NASCAR. Hey, your guy's doing pretty good. Jeff Ward's got a second going right now.
I don't know, Jack. We'll see if we got enough for Roger here at the end.
It's a rivalry that's been in existence for a long time.
I can't hear you.
You and Roger have been rivals for so long. What would it mean to you to beat him tonight?
Again, it'd be good.
Again, it would be good. We continue to watch under caution here at the Richmond International Raceway. 191 of the 250 laps have been completed. It should be a barn burner when they drop the green flag.
Roger Penske looks somewhat pensively for his cars once again, because Catherine Evis is back out and running, though well behind the race. He's watching his leader, DeFerrin, with Jeff Ward just behind him, then Felipe Giaffoni and Thomas Scheckter ready to go green. The green is out. No, they pull it in. Started the race, then pulled it back.
Well, very quickly, let's update you. During that caution period, Alex Barron did get the service that he needed, so now he is okay as well to the end of the race.
So the entire group of contenders, which takes us down to 10th place, Barron, the 44 car.
Green, 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 green.
And this time they're going green.
Paul, I think they started to have a green that last time by, but I think Brian Barnhart saw that Gilles DeFerrin got a bit too much of a jump on the restart and probably put the yellow right back out.
Scheckter on the move on the outside of Felipe Giaffoni. Now coming up to work on Ward.
What Scheckter does is gets underneath Ward, moves him high in the turn, then takes his line away from him. A nice smooth move.
Boy, the kid is good. And Giaffoni gets Ward. Now Hornich is going to get him.
Once you've got your stride thrown off a little bit, it just takes a lap to be able to get back up your momentum and your speed. Certainly Jeff was paying for that right there.
Ward was running high and then crossed down to a low line. Across the nose of Unser Jr. Greg Ray closes in on Unser Jr. going for the position. That's his teammate Dari. The two Harris cars of A.J. Foyt running right together. But it doesn't work for Ray, and Dari's going to take advantage of the loss of momentum. Or not.
And Richie Hearn's now looking for an opportunity. Momentum's a big part here. These guys know they're down to about 50 laps left to go. You
You still have to have patience. You have to tame that aggression. Still a long ways to go yet.
And Scott, what about tires? One thing that Roger Penske told Gilles Deferrin just before we went back to green, Gilles, you've got 7 green flag laps on this set of Firestones. He said your tires are going to be great for the end of the race. Just let it all hang out.
Jack, as you know, these Firestone Firehawks are so good in restarts and conditions, and they are all the time without a problem. The drivers are very confident in what they have underneath them as far as the tires are concerned.
So at the front, it's Deferrin and Scheckter. Youth and exuberance and old age. Well, that's a Johnny Rutherford for it, really. Old age and treachery is the way JR would put it.
Real good lap there, real good lap.
If it comes down to these two guys here, as you say, Paul, so much experience with Gilles Deferrin up front.
Yeah, but not here for either of them.
Not here for either of them, but racecraft, race experience, and maybe not getting too excited. Both of them are very, very fit. They take out and work out all throughout the week. They eat correctly. Both these guys are both physically fit. I don't think there should be any issues there. I can tell you, as hard as they're working right now, their heart rate's probably at 170 or 80 beats a minute. Scheckter's maybe just a little bit more, because you can see possibly his first win might be within grasp.
Boy, they are fast now. Fastest lap for Deferrin in the race at 156.851 miles an hour. Last time around, Scheckter matched it. 156. 3/4 of a mile around. Oh!
17-second laps, Paul, as we mentioned before. Remember, right now, with the section we're seeing them on, only 3.5 seconds per lap that you're actually going straight between turns 2 and 3. Right there, coming out of turn 2, going down the straight, and you can see a little wiggle coming off of Deferrin's car. That's the area where you're squeezing the throttle, trying to put the power down, trying to tame that 700 horsepower that you have available underneath your right foot.
Watch again as he comes through 2. See if it'll dart again. He comes up pretty smooth that time. In fact, everybody does. Gary Gerald, you've been working that infield care center a little too much tonight.
Paul, we'll give you a quick update on Laurent Redon. They are keeping him for further examination. He's awake and alert. There is a minor concern over a possible injury to one of his hands. That's the latest word we got there. So if he is released, we'll try to get a word from him. But a possible hand injury for Redon.
That car was really in the air on contact with the wall. Finally came back down. Eddie Cheever climbed out quickly. Redon took a little bit longer, so we'll keep an eye on him and give you an update should one become available.
Paul, sometimes how hand injuries happen. We saw earlier on with Scott Sharp when he hit the wall, he took his hands away from the steering wheel because the wheel can really twist around in front of you very quickly and catch your hand. Maybe that's something that Laurent Redon hasn't learned so far yet on oval, that when something happens, you take your hands off. It's very tough to do, and just sort of grab your chest and sort of hope for the best.
With a road racing background, you're constantly thinking, too, that you're going to save it. But keep your hands on the wheel and try. Sometimes you just have to abandon the whole thing and wait for the loud noise.
You do, because you're a passenger, and there's really nothing you can do. And the only thing that's going to stop you from going anywhere is the wall. On a road course situation, you usually go through a sand pit or a gravel trail, or you also end up going into the tires. So drivers seem to drive the car a lot longer when they're going out of control on a road course, because they always think they might be able to save it. Here, the ball's only a few feet away, and you certainly don't have that much time to correct the car, if indeed you can at all.
Top 4 all running right together, and now, once again, approaching traffic. Deferrin will lead them on through. And again, the danger becomes as they go around Barron. Deferrin goes to the high side. That split, that cost Scheckter a bunch. Gave up 3 positions by that move, and he's going to give up more.
That's twice he's tried it on the high side of both ends, and a little too late in the race to want to be up there with all those marbles that can get off all those tires from the tire wear. You just want to be as low as possible.
His owner and teammate, Eddie Cheever, doing what he said, watching from the pits. And Deferrin poked his nose low. Scheckter went high. Bad news.
Scheckter, although he's lost a couple positions, he has to get his rhythm back, get back to his pace. You can see Eddie Cheever standing there. Now, I notice Eddie does not have a headset on. Dick Karen, you can see the team manager is walking and pacing.
With that one little move. Schechter fell from second down to fifth. Giafone now to second. Hornish to third. They are still right together. And so now Giafone starts to play catch-up on the master, Gilles de Ferran. We'll be back.
ESPN's presentation of the SunTrust Indy Challenge, brought to you by SunTrust, responding to your financial needs for over 100 years. Sears, only Sears has the brands you want at the prices you need. Sears, where else? America Online, so easy to use, no wonder it's #1. There's never been a better time to get online. And Chevrolet, wherever there's a winner's circle, we'll be there.
Well, we look at the Firestone telemetry from Sam Hornish Jr. at Richmond International Raceway. The SunTrust Indy Challenge. De Ferran is the leader. Giafone second, then this car, Sam Hornish Jr. There's been a ride with him. Don't forget, we've added in braking now. The last panel. There he is on the brakes, feathers him back out. It tells you the relative pressure of the brake pedal as well.
Absolutely, Paul. What happens here, you can see he gets on the brake just in the middle of the turn, and then back on the gas, squeezing the throttle, going along the front stretch right now, 1,260 feet long, and starts to wind the car into turn 1, back on the brakes a little bit, back on the gas in this trouble area of turn 2, very gently trying to tame that 700 horsepower that we talked about, and look how quickly you do a lap here. Already back coming out of turn 4, 16, 17 seconds a lap.
Ground is too hard, too high in terrain.
Now Hornish catching up to Felipe Giafone. Greg Ray, who led for 41 laps, just coasted into the pits. Schechter now closing in on Hornish as well. Ward's there too. And they're all closing down on de Ferran. 231 laps complete.
The tightness of this track, catching up to a group of cars like Schechter is doing right now is one thing. To be able to get past them is another.
Look how tight that's getting now. De Ferran lost a tip to Giafone last time around.
And pulled down to the Schechter pit. Eddie Cheever now has the radio headset on, and this crew is on pins and needles. They're dancing down here as they watch Schechter try to close and challenge Sam Hornish. He got around Jeff Ward to reclaim one of those positions. He lost some time back.
And while we watch this fight, Robbie McGee stayed in it, been very careful throughout the day. Is 3 laps behind the race, but running in 10th. For him, that's a great run. Boy, Felipe Giafone is there now. Oh, Cheever got it back to the track. Here comes Schechter working on Hornish. Hornish stays high, gives him room. But Schechter can't turn it into any magic. Now Hornish starts to work on Giafone. Interval first to second remains the same.
As a driver, Hornish right now knows that if he doesn't get past Giafone in front of him, he could lose a position. Not only is he thinking about the win now, but he's also thinking about points for the championship.
And speaking of championship points, a win here for de Ferran will move him into the points lead. But by staying out, Elio Castroneves getting that car repaired and coming out, it's currently 18th. That's going to help him a little bit.
Any points will count. You think about some of the championships over past years, people only winning them by maybe 3 or 4 or 5 points. Any points you get, no matter what weekend you have, you'll take them.
And guys, a little bit earlier, somebody had figured down here if nobody else fell out, and if Castroneves could stay until the end, he would gain 5 valuable points. And with a couple of other cars already sidelined, it may be a bigger bonus than that for all that hard work.
Well, and since the battle for the lead is right now sitting at about 12 points, it's going to make a big difference. And it's why they do it. Schechter now all over the back end of Hornish. Hornish looking to the high side of Giafone. 10 to go.
10 to go.
Here comes Hornish. He goes high on Giafone. Nothing there. He tries high again.
And Paul, one of the top 5 has just fallen out. Jeff Ward just went by us at the pit entrance onto pit road. Don't know why.
Ward drops out. That brings Hunter Jr. up to 5th. Both Hornish and Schechter now with 8 to go, working very hard on Felipe Giafone. The interval first to second dropped to 0.3 of a second. Schechter tries to move on Hornish. Hornish gives him room, but he can't complete the move. And with that, Hunter Jr. is now closing on Schechter.
Schildeferen's watching this in his mirror, Paul. He just loves to see those guys fighting. Oh, hello, just rubs the tires.
First through 6, now covered by a 1.5 seconds. Hornish going to try him again. And he's got him this time. Hornish to second.
He's running down. He got 4 laps to go.
Takes another look at Felipe Giafone. Hornish closes on the leader. There is traffic ahead that may figure in before the checkered flag.
Paul Hornish has got a fast race car. Look how far he can drive it into the turns. Ends up catching up to DeFerrin on the way in. But you got to put the power down on the way out to be able to make the pass.
Don't forget Hornish's last lap move at Fontana. Hornish again sets himself up off the right rear of DeFerrin. Now he comes down to the inside, and he goes around DeFerrin. Hornish gets DeFerrin.
Hello, pass. Keep going.
Hornish takes the lead and drives away from Jill DeFerrin. Now Felipe Giafone looks for his chance.
Good job.
White flag is out. Final lap. Hornish grabs the lead in the last seconds and pulls away. DeFerrin is going to have to work to hold off Felipe Giafone. And there's the checkered flag for Sam Hornish Jr. DeFerrin in second. Schechter moved to the inside, tried to grab third away from Felipe Giafone.
What a great run by Hornish, Paul. Sat back, used the speed that he had at the very end.
And with that run, Helio Castroneves still has the points lead by just 3 over Jill DeFerrin, but the win belongs to Sam Hornish Jr. We'll be back in just a moment. Main quality coming up, but just a moment we will be back to hear from the winner, Sam Hornish Jr. Drivers meeting, they said, to the victory lane behind the pits. He's on his way onto pit road to you, Jack.
Yeah, should be behind the fuel truck.
Behind the fuel truck there. Do a nice job.
We're coming right back to Jack then in victory lane. Okay, all right, okay. He led only 2 laps, the last 2.
do it there.
Hey, good job, Sam.
Get your helmet off. Get your helmet off. Mike, do you want anything from this? Okay.
This is a boring league, isn't it?
Hey, you know, like,
Okay. All right.
Good job, Sam.
Yeah. California, last lap pass. Nazareth, last lap pass. Texas, last lap pass. Richmond, pass with 2 laps to go.
Bob's throwing it to me, right?
Yes. Well, baseball tonight is coming up in just a moment. We've got to talk with a guy who has won here in Richmond. He led only 2 laps. The last 2, Sam Hornish Jr. wins it, Jack.
All right, tell me about that pass on DeFerrin.
Well, it's really a tribute to the team. I put the car on the wall before qualifying yesterday. The guys did an awesome job. Put the same car back together. We took our time and we weren't fast for about the first 200 laps and just bided our time and made changes to the car. Just a real team effort tonight. The Pennzoil Panther team's awesome.
Bob?
What a run for Sam Hornish Jr., who is now within just 24 points of the lead in the Indy Racing League. Coming up next, baseball tonight. And don't forget to join us next Sunday, July 7th on ABC Sports for the Kansas City Indy 200, live at 1 o'clock Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. Thanks for joining us here in Richmond, where Sam Hornish Jr. has won. This has been a presentation of ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports. For more, log on to ESPN.com.